to Everything Home. It is Friday, I don't know what, March.
21st.
Friday, March 21st. Thank you, Heather. Oh, this is Heather. And I'm Chris, if you don't already know. And as I always do, we want to learn about you. I'm not going to do an introduction. So to start out with, who is Heather?
I asked you not to ask deep questions. I'm Heather. I am married to Chris. We have 2 daughters. And
Not me.
Not you, yeah.
Right.
The other Chris.
It's a different Chris.
It's a different Chris. Yeah, I've been a stay-at-home mom, homeschool mom for a while, and now I'm doing vacation rental hosting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of vacation rental hosting, so when you say that,
Or co-hosting.
okay, so to that point,
Mm-hmm.
you own properties,
I do.
but you also co-host, which we'll define that in a minute. I don't want to do it right now.
Right.
Right now, I want to focus on your properties. So what
Mhm.
properties do you have?
So our first purchase was in Kissimmee, Florida, which is we're like the next exit down from Magic Kingdom. And it's a 3-bedroom, 3-bath townhome.
Mhm.
And then that was in 2017. And then 2019, we purchased a oceanfront condo in Panama City Beach, Florida.
Mhm.
And then COVID happened. And then what happened? And then we bought, I don't know, what year is it? It's
Right now?
25.
25.
So I think in either 2022 or 2023, I'd have to go back and look, but we bought another cabin in Clayton, Georgia.
Okay.
So
And I'm not just texting other people or doing stuff. I'm making notes. So
Yeah.
I'm not ignoring her.
Mhm. And his very nice
Stop looking at my
handwriting that it
notes.
should be in.
Stop reading ahead. I know you want to read ahead, but don't.
Okay.
So with all those properties, starting on the renter's side. Now,
Mhm.
first, to give some context, in this issue of the magazine, the article is Airbnb still worth it? Which we'll get to later,
Okay.
right? But let's start off from the renter's side.
Okay.
From your point of view, because the magazine itself is focused on North Georgia, we'll focus on that.
Okay.
What do renters want?
I think in this, the market has definitely changed since we started.
In what way?
Well, since COVID happened and you had so many influencers and so many people traveling, and then there was so many real estate's such a great investment. You should own an Airbnb, you should own a place. There was a ton that kind of came into the market. And so I would say everybody's been taking their game, their amenities, all of their stuff to the next level. So now I think what a renter is wanting and expecting is an experience. And they are wanting and expecting top, top of the line, or, the equivalent of top of the line type amenities. They want to go into an Airbnb or, a vacation rental that has, their coffee, their, waters, snack, everything that you could get at a hotel. They want that, that type of experience.
So going back to the first part of what you said, you should get an Airbnb and make money. First, I'm going to go back to Airbnb itself. I know there's other platforms, but yes. So in the last one we did, and I do it here because I love trains.
Yeah.
And the last episode, Chip and I talked about the train too. Honestly, I don't even know if you can hear the train. If you can't,
Yeah.
it's going to kind of be irrelevant and silly. But I kind of want that train in every single episode, and I hope it happens.
Yeah. That could be an experience.
It could be.
You could get a place down here and advertise for people who love trains that want to.
Oh, a train Airbnb.
Yeah, train Airbnb. There you go. But I also want to make a point that when people start just calling it Airbnbs, it's like you're giving your place over to them. So I'm trying really hard to call it more of a vacation rental.
Okay.
Because
and I do have that later, but absolutely.
Yeah, I think you know, Airbnb is not the owner of my property, it's me.
That's fair.
So like,
Okay.
you know what I mean? Like not just calling it just an Airbnb because
Do you want me to retitle the article?
I
I
mean
think
that's
Airbnb catches attention.
yeah, I mean Airbnb is Google of the market.
That's true.
So
Do
I
you know
mean,
why it's called Airbnb?
I don't know, that's a good question.
Thank you. I looked it up.
Bed and breakfast, something with
Air bed and breakfast.
air bed and that's right.
You
Because
know why?
they started
They
originally with an air
with an air
mattress
bed.
on their floor.
Yeah, that's all it was. You
That's what it
actually
started.
had to have an air bed.
Yeah, exactly.
And
That's
it
what
was
it was.
in a home that was already being lived in. So it was
Right.
basically here's a floor and
Mhm.
here's an air bed. Literally why it's called Airbnb.
It's definitely evolved.
It has evolved a little bit.
Mhm.
So are you saying, and let's talk specifically about North Georgia, are you saying the short-term rental market is kind of saturated?
I think that so I have access to like data analysis over the area. And I mean, there's definitely, for example, in Blue Ridge, a couple that I co-host there, I was looking a few weeks ago at like specifically 6 bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And there's double the amount of 6 bedroom properties that there was 2 years ago. So is it saturated? I mean, it really depends on the influx of people that you have and the demand that you
Yeah.
have. That demand was incredibly high during COVID years. People were
Huh.
flocking to the mountains to get away and do all that stuff. And now the market is a little bit more stable. But I mean, for example, 2 years ago, it was 50% occupancy rate, for like, I was looking at February specifically. And now it's about 25%, but we have more
Interesting.
Airbnb or vacation rental.
Okay. And
you know?
I had that in the notes, and
Mhm.
maybe my note is a year or two old. I did
Mhm.
have in mind that in North Georgia the average occupancy rate is 49%. And
Well,
it may
that's
not
probably
be now.
it's probably over the year, it's about 50%, but I was speaking
Okay.
specifically in that month. Like I break it down
I
into
see.
to monthly occupancy and goals as opposed
Okay.
to, the overall.
Okay. And going to people's expectations, which you also brought up, and the
Mhm.
way you phrased it, I thought was interesting because you were like, people want their coffee.
Yeah.
Do they actually want their coffee? Like, are people messaging you being like, hey, here's what I drink?
No, they don't do that, but I will tell you the number one asked question is what type of coffee maker we
Really?
have. Yes, that is my number. And even though I've written it everywhere, it still is my number one most asked question, what type
Okay.
of coffee maker I have. So we have everything. You could, well, not
Wait,
everything,
you have
but
multiple coffee makers?
well, in those big properties, yeah, we do. Not in my personal, I offer both a drip and a K-cup style because
Okay.
people like both. And in my cabin in North Georgia, I also have a French press. So you can have whatever you wanted to do. Or you can just walk down the street
To the
and
coffee shop.
to the coffee shop, which is a great little coffee shop.
Okay.
So
What we've learned so far today is before you message Heather a question about the property, fully read the description on the listing.
try to
Say
answer
that
all
one
the
time.
questions. I try to answer all the questions.
I had no idea. Okay,
Mhm.
so when we say when we say their coffee, we mean
They want
yes,
coffee.
they
Yeah.
want coffee and they want their
Mhm.
coffee. Okay.
Mhm.
So we're going to shift gears a little bit. In within the article, we do mention the listings themselves.
Mhm.
So describe to me the importance of the listing itself, wherever the
Mhm.
listing is.
Okay. So like most things now, AI has taken things to another level.
Mm-hmm.
Um, your photos are probably, your number one, um, the number one most important thing. Your cover photos, your listing photos, and it's interesting because when I started looking and started speaking to different photographers, and I was like, how are they getting these? Like, you look at these pictures, and it's like these starry nights, and it's all amazing, and I was like talking to him, and it's like, oh yeah, that's all like AI. I don't know if I should be saying this, but
No, of course. Yeah.
so
Yeah,
it was like,
absolutely.
so it's like you're not even competing if you don't have, a photographer that specializes in vacation rental
Mhm.
photos. If you just go and get like a regular I mean, and I can say some do both, but you have to really look at their portfolio and see, like, does this person know what is going to call attention? Because people have short attention spans. They're scrolling, hundreds of
Hmm.
properties. Your first picture has to be wow.
Oh,
And
yeah. Okay.
so that picture has to somehow capture that person to make them want to click. I mean, it's kind of the same in any industry, right?
Hmm.
And so you want to show as much of as much as I can't talk, as much of what you have to offer in that first picture that makes them go, wow, I want to check this out.
Hmm.
And then I think in the listing, you want to be as detailed but not overwhelming. I think the best listings have um like bullet points, because people read,
Hmm. Like the bullet point of
the
all the
bullet
different coffee
points.
makers.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And you want to be very clear about the amenities that you have. Um and if it's something that there's any safety issues, or there's any kind of, like, you just want to put as much as you can on the property, because if they get there and then something's not as advertised. Airbnb just did a new update, and people, they ask for a refund, or you have to give them a certain discount if, like, say you have something and then you don't. So you have to really make sure that
Okay.
your your listings are as accurate as you can be.
So don't make crap up to get people to
Don't make
book,
crap
but you don't
up.
actually have it.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
that would be really bad. So you probably would get a bad rating, and
Okay.
but the
Well,
goal is to get people to stay on your listing and then book from you know what I mean? So you
okay.
want to get good information, and you know, great photos. Those are your two.
The photo is interesting because
Mhm.
the cabin you have in Clayton, which is yours,
Mhm.
um, I believe, because you mentioned experience earlier, and that
Mhm.
comes up in the article, which is awesome and it's true.
Yeah.
I believe your cover photo for the Clayton is there's a fire going
Yeah, in the fire pit.
and the fire pit, and you can see the cabin from there, and you
Mhm.
can see all the cafe lights and everything, and
Mhm.
it's interesting. There's movement in the photo.
Mhm.
It's the experiential part, not hey, here's the living room.
Right.
But yeah, that's really interesting.
Mhm.
Tell me about, and I have no idea.
Okay.
I didn't actually research.
Okay.
Stop looking at my notes and looking ahead.
Okay.
I'm curious about, and you don't need to give numbers. It's none of our business.
Mhm.
Revenue
Mhm.
versus the expense of owning a property.
Um, it's yeah. Um, you have to think of, like, your house, and I don't think most people keep their houses as well. Okay, most responsible hosts, let's put it like that,
Okay.
do not, like, I know our house, like, we might suffer a little bit longer with a new HVA or with an older HVA system that's not
Mm,
running at peak performance. But when you have guests that are there and they're complaining because they can't turn it down to 65 degree, or you know what I mean? Like, because it's an old machine. So there is a lot of expense. I mean, because you have to be on top of um, the care and maintenance and the safety issues and the quality of the quality of everything. I mean, they say, an average sofa lifespan in a short-term rental is about 3 years, 3 to 5 years. So,
yeah.
you've got a budget for, turning around, and we like to budget about 1% of the current value of the property per year in repairs. So if you spent,
Okay.
like, that's what in our minds when we're doing our performas or when we're analyzing a property, we like to just think like, okay, we need to save this much in a year, because you're going to have to replace everything.
Okay. I want to work that. That's a very cool stat. I had no idea, and I want to work that into it. One thing I'm curious
Did I
about.
say 1%?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what Chris says.
Um.
Just making sure. Like, I didn't say 10% because that would be too much.
So something I heard that I didn't see. I'm just curious now. And it just popped into my head.
Mhm.
Expense, everything like that.
Mhm.
You don't really have to drain the hot tub after every use in a stay.
In Georgia, I think by law you're supposed to, yeah.
So clearly, yeah, you do. Okay, great.
Hmm.
I had no. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's a headache. Speaking of headaches,
Yeah.
what are the biggest headaches to owning a short-term rental?
People asking you what kind of coffee maker you have when you've already listed it. Um, no, I'm just kidding.
I sincerely hope. I really, you know what? We'll when we post this on the website, we'll put a link to your properties, and I genuinely hope someone clicks on it and asks you,
What kind of
"Hey,
coffee
what
maker?
kind of coffee?"
Yeah, that'll be great. I'll know it came from this interview.
Absolutely.
Um, no, I think the hardest. What was the question? Like, what the hardest thing is, or
Biggest
what's
headaches.
biggest headache? Biggest headache. I think for me, because I am such a people pleaser and I do genuinely, I mean, to me, it's a big responsibility when you're actually taking someone's money for vacation, to provide a good experience.
Hmm.
So, and I don't take that responsibility lightly just because I know when I go to book a place, it's like, I want it to be a great experience and it's time for your family and so for me, I think the biggest headache or what's upsetting and the hardest is when you have a guest that just isn't happy and there's nothing that you can really do about it.
Yeah.
um that just like kind of, I take it personal, and I mean that's my own issue, but that's probably that's the hardest part for me, is dealing with um I mean, it doesn't happen often, thankfully, but when it does happen, it's kind of gutting, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because it's like, man, I worked so hard, and then, but again, it doesn't happen often. But when it does happen, it's probably
Difficult.
the
Okay.
hardest part, I mean, and when guests don't communicate with you something that you could have done
Mhm.
or something like that, and then they like leave you a bad review, or
Yeah.
that's hard too. But for the most part, I would say, it's pretty easy dealing with guests as long as you communicate well.
What's your favorite part?
Guests, like communicating with guests. Like I have like there's 3 or 4 now that have stayed at all of my properties, and they constantly, like,
Nice.
um, so for me, the relationships, I love the relationships that I have with my cleaners. I see it as a way that I give back to like that community.
Hmm.
Um, and so for me, that's probably my favorite part is, I mean, sometimes, especially in Clayton specifically, um, like I am supporting people, like there's
Yeah.
people that are being
Yeah.
supported. So, like sometimes I will take bookings at, a discounted rate last minute or whatever, because I know that like my cleaner is going to get paid, my
Hmm.
handyman is going to get paid, so things like that. I feel like that's more of like my why, or my, what drives me and what I enjoy about
Interesting.
the economy, giving back to the community kind of
Well, yeah,
thing.
when you multiply it by how many short-term rentals are
Right.
in that city, that's
It's an
huge.
industry. I
It
mean,
is.
it's
That
become an
completely
industry.
supports.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that.
And then the shops, the restaurants,
Yeah, yeah,
like
exactly.
the ecotourism, and especially for like North Georgia and, where mine are, Clayton. I mean, Blue Ridge is a little bit bigger, but Clayton, like that was an industrial, like that was a town that had factories before, and like, and those are gone now.
Yeah,
So the tourism market really supports a lot of people up there.
that's amazing. What are, and maybe for yourself, but anybody
Hmm.
that is either thinking about it or has one, what are um, the question is, what are the biggest opportunities? And that could be however you take it.
Hmm.
Opportunities to improve, opportunities to make money. I don't care how you take it, but what are the biggest opportunities?
Well, I feel like this industry is kind of in the infancy slash, early adolescent phase. I think it
Really?
has
Okay.
become an industry, and we're finding more and more business opportunities to come out of that. Um, so you have a lot of like what they call, what is it, like basically like the legend rentals, or the people who are they inherited it or their grandparents own a place and like they've just listed it.
Oh,
And,
sure.
and it's like they don't really do much, but that property has a ton of potential to make money, and
Mhm.
so now you have a lot of people, and then there's like people who go to like who bought it pre-COVID back in the day when there wasn't that many, and they just listed it with like a big rental company, and they're not seeing the returns that I feel like those properties have the potential to do. I think that what you're seeing, the shift in the industry now, is a lot of people like myself, like Faith, that
Mhm.
people like that they're starting to kind of have like boutique co-hostings
Mhm.
opportunities. And so with that, from there you can also go down into specializing in pricing. You can specialize in listing optimization. You can specialize in marketing. Then you have, so I feel like there's a lot of, because to do this job and to do it well, you have to be really good at a lot of different things. And
Yeah.
that's very challenging to master all of those things. So I feel like the outsourcing of some of those things that you're maybe not as interested in, I can definitely see the potential to grow in that area,
Okay.
for different and then as an owner, I think finding, as far as opportunity goes,
Mhm.
finding a property that is, the unicorn of the area. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's going to have all of those things. Because I definitely think it's harder to make money in cash flow with the interest rates and the prices where they are in a lot of markets
Yeah.
right now, but it's still there. You just have to know what you're looking for, know what you're good at, and have realistic expectations going into those different markets and those areas.
So what I'm figuring out,
Hmm.
and this was kind of the idea anyway, I just haven't told you yet.
Oh, okay.
This is really just the introductory of short-term rental properties. Hey, here's kind of what's up. Here's what I do. And this is just the beginning of it. So the idea
Hmm.
being that each time we put out a magazine issue, then we have a corresponding interview.
Okay.
And because of what you just said, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different topics. So
Oh,
we've got about a year's worth of
okay.
things to record here, and
Okay.
it's I'm not going to go into it now, but
Okay.
um, I think that's fantastic. So speaking of Airbnb, you brought it up earlier that Airbnb doesn't own your property.
Hmm.
It's just this. It's like Kleenex, right?
Hmm.
Well, Kleenex isn't
Yeah.
tissue; it's a
It's just the
brand.
brand, right?
So what else is out there besides Airbnb? I don't know.
Okay. So, besides Airbnb, there's VRBO,
Oh,
which
I
is,
didn't
or
know.
Verbo, that's what people call it.
Do people say Verbo?
They do,
Because I don't
yeah.
like saying
I
it.
don't like saying Verbo either, but that's even on their commercial. If you look
Is
it
it
up,
really?
yeah, if you look it
Oh,
up, they say Verbo. There is Google Vacation Rentals is now a thing.
really?
Yep. So like how you search for flights on Google Flights? You might not, but anyway. So yeah, there's Google Vacation Rentals. There is a place called Hopper that is up and coming. There is Furnish Finder is more of a mid-stay type place. So if you're looking for something like 1 to 3 months, or
Interesting.
there's different places like that. And then most responsible and professional co-hosts or owners have a direct booking site. And if you're a smart
Oh, yes.
investor, or I mean a smart consumer, you can typically find the keywords in the listings and then find their websites.
Are you
Um,
allowed to put a direct link?
you're not allowed to put a direct link. No,
Okay, I figured it had to be a no, but
that would be
yeah.
against terms and conditions. But
Okay.
there are kind of industry.
Things that we're not going to share because
Hmm.
no, yeah, it doesn't.
But you can, if you are a smart consumer looking at a property, a lot of properties have names
Hmm.
um, that they've branded.
Like Bob.
Well, no, like, Creekside Cabin in Clayton, or, something like that, where
I
you
see.
have a name that you would then, you could market,
Okay.
on Instagram, on social media, on Google, wherever you wanted to.
Okay. Um, 5 more questions. 3 of them are very,
Okay.
very fast.
Okay.
And this one just came out. I'm just sheer curiosity.
Okay.
Is there a next property for you?
Yeah.
And if so, what location?
I can't tell you that.
Oh, it's fine.
No, I don't know. That's really my husband's
Okay.
joy of life is picking properties, not mine. But yeah, I mean, we do plan our goal. I think our goal is to have like 4 more.
Okay. That'd be
So,
7 total, short term. Okay.
yeah.
Got it. Is I'm gonna say Airbnb because that's the name of the
That's
thing. We'll
yeah.
just you know what, forget it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say it. Is a short-term rental, let's say done correctly, worth it?
Again, I think it all goes back to your motive and like what your reasoning, like for some
If your
people,
motive is to make money.
in the right market and the right price, yeah, I
Okay.
can say that, yeah. But there are some people that do it more for the tax strategy. There are some people that do it more as long-term wealth building. I mean, it really depends on where you're at in life. Can you make money at it? Absolutely. But you just have to find the right property, do the research, and have a realistic expectation about what it's going to cash flow.
Okay.
And it's not passive. Like people think that like, oh, I'm just going to go buy this, put it on Airbnb and it's going to.
In passive income, I don't have to do anything.
Yeah. And that's not a realistic expectation, especially in this market.
Okay. All right. Yet another one. When to sell and when to buy another one. That's a whole other. Okay.
Well, I
You don't go into it now. No.
Okay.
Because it's going to be a whole other. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. 3 more.
Okay.
What's your favorite movie?
Oh gosh. I don't know.
Or a favorite movie.
When I was
easier.
a teenager, my favorite movie was Before Sunrise.
I have no context, but okay.
Yeah.
We'll take that as your answer.
Ethan Hawke and Julie Duplessis, and they met on this train going through Europe and spent one night just exploring, and it just was a very romantic movie that I liked.
Okay. Never even heard of it and never seen it. Is there a book you're reading right now?
I just finished The Comfort Crisis.
Oh.
It was really good. You would really like it.
Never heard. Okay.
You would really like it.
Right.
It's probably one of the best books I've read in a long time.
Really? Okay. I will get it and I will read.
Michael Easterly is his name.
Michael. He's you all. All right. Everyone listening, just hold on. I'm making a note.
Yeah.
Easterly?
Easterly. I'm pretty sure that's his name.
Oh, my eraser just turned on. Okay.
It's about getting outside of your comfort zone and stretching your brain and growing. You'd probably really
I like it. I would really like it.
And it's a really well written book because it's like telling the story of his Arctic hunt. So like one chapter is about the journey, and then one chapter is the science and the research, and then one chapter is the journey, and he breaks it down. It's a very well done book.
Okay, I will absolutely get it and read it. Heather, what do you want to do when you grow up?
I don't want to grow up. I want to revert back into. There's too much. What do I want to do when I grow up? I just want to continue to grow as a person.
Okay.
That's what I want to do. I have stopped putting like definitive plans on what I want to do.
Right.
I've tried to just be like, I just want to be better tomorrow than I was today. And so in all areas, spiritually, relationally, every way, those are my goals.
All right, in our next episode with Heather, we'll have a live coaching session, and we will go into psychology.
Yeah. Also, another favorite subject to talk about.
Well, Heather, I appreciate it. That's a lot of information. I really want to dig more into it on later episodes, but we appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right.